Hey, friend, welcome back to another episode of Her Unraveled Life. I am so excited to dive into today's topic. We are going to be talking about getting unstuck God's way. We've all been there, right? That place where you feel like you can't move forward. I've described it as feeling like I'm pushing a brick wall through knee-deep mud. Maybe you have said to yourself, if only I had fill in the blank, then I would be able to get unstuck. And then I will be happy, or then I will be content. Does that sound familiar? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Her Unraveled Life podcast. I'm your host, Amy Wadlington, a life coach, spiritual mentor, prophet, mom, and author. I've faced trauma, single parenthood, financial struggles, chronic illness, and more. Through faith, holistic living, and God's grace, I overcame these challenges. My experiences fuel my passion to help others transform their lives and achieve breakthrough. I've emerged from dark valleys, unraveling life's mess to become who God created me to be. Now I coach others to do the same. I see you, friend. You're feeling overwhelmed by life's constant demands, barely keeping up with life's responsibilities. You have put yourself on the back burner for so long, you've almost forgotten who you are. You feel stuck despite trying everything for that breakthrough. You're exhausted by worry and self-doubt, feeling isolated in your struggles. Imagine waking up with the clear sense of purpose, effortlessly managing stress, and feeling supported by a loving community. Picture tackling daily tasks with confidence, joy, and alignment with God's calling. Let me help you unravel the chaos and step into the abundant life you're meant for. It's time to take control and transform your life. This podcast is for seasoned kingdom women who are tired of barely surviving, let alone thriving. You desire to feel confident, less stressed, and more faithful in God. In this podcast, you'll learn how to transform your thinking to get the breakthrough you need so that you can boldly step into your God-given calling with confidence and inner peace. Embrace your power, ditch self-doubt, and step into the breakthrough you've been longing for. Let me show you how. Perhaps you're thinking if you only had better health, fewer pounds, more time, more money, more followers, more peace, or maybe you think less stress, more clarity, or more help from others would get you out of this trench that you're in. Or perhaps you're thinking, if only I could get the breakthrough I need, everything else will fall into place. I get it. I've been there too. But what if I told you that everything you need to move forward is already right in front of you? You already have it. Let me ask you this. What would it look like for you to take only what you have right now and make it work? Often the things that we want or we think we need are already within our grasp. We just need a mindset shift and the right action plan to see them. One of the toughest things about being stuck is finding the motivation to get moving again. It is so easy to fall into that rut, but getting out, not so much. Old habits and routines feel safe, and the unknown can be downright scary, even if it's ultimately better for you in the long run. Our brains are wired to keep us safe, and if they sense any danger at all, they will hold us back. But here's the thing. You can train your brain to see change as safe. You want to start by regulating your nervous system. Take deep breaths and be kind to yourself. Stop beating yourself up. Imagine if you had a boss who wants you to tackle a project that you've never done before. You have absolutely no experience doing it. He storms into your office with this huge file and starts criticizing you immediately, saying, I know that you're not very smart, and here's a list of all of your past failures. This project is enormous, and you know nothing about it, but I expect you to get it done perfectly right now. You would quit on the spot. No one would tolerate that kind of treatment from a boss. Yet we do it to ourselves every single day. Let's change the narrative. Be your own biggest supporter and remind yourself that you can do this. You've got what it takes to move forward and embrace the change. So, there are a couple of reasons why we get stuck because we feel like we need just fill in the blank and then we'll be ready, or because we're afraid of failing, or maybe we're afraid of succeeding, or because we procrastinate and we keep putting off anything that feels scary or uncertain. Sometimes it's the path forward isn't very clear yet, so we don't want to take that first step until we feel like we have clarity or a better vision from God. Or maybe we just don't have a plan yet. Or maybe it's because our family doesn't support us in what we want to do. Or maybe it seems like everything around us is working against us. Or because we've failed in the past and we believe that we're going to fail again. So why bother trying? Or maybe we feel alone or isolated and we just need some support. Or maybe it's imposter syndrome, guilt, or shame, or it could be spiritual, like an enemy attack or sin or disobedience that's holding you back. Let's be real. Getting unstuck can be really challenging. It's hard work, and it often feels like we're stuck in what I call the suck zone. It's that really frustrating space between knowing what to do and actually doing it. And the biggest obstacle is the 6 inches between your ears, your own mind and your own thoughts. Facing yourself and confronting those parts that you'd rather avoid is really tough. Stepping out of your comfort zone and taking action is daunting. But guess what? Staying where you are is also hard. You have to choose your heart. When trying to move from point A to point B in life, we often get stuck. We know that we need to reach point B, but we might have no idea what it looks like or how to get there, or we think we know and we end up lost and we get stuck on the way. Wouldn't it be nice if life came with a GPS? Well, the good news is that we have one, and his name is Jesus. His word lights our path. He gives us visions for our future and he tells us where to go. All we need to do is be faithful and take action one step at a time. It is so worth it to do the work and to start the journey or continue the journey if you've already started. The hardest part is always the first step, but the most successful people that I see in my coaching business are those who are willing to take that first step. I call it doing it scared. Taking that leap, even when you're afraid, is what leads to real progress. So today I want to share with you 3 steps plus a few bonus tips that will help you get unstuck God's way. Let's dive in. Number 1 is connect with God. The word lights your path, and Jesus is the word, and his word is also the Bible. Ask him for a vision for where you're heading. The Bible says, without vision, we will perish. But we also need to ask, where are we now? You can ask, what is my current assignment? What has he put in your heart to do? Are you off course? Are you on course and just feeling afraid? Is sin getting in the way? What was the last thing that he told you to do? Have you done it? Let me share a personal story with you. There was a time when I felt like nothing was going right for me. My biggest stressor was my finances. Usually, finances is always my biggest stressor. I was barely keeping my head above water. And every time I would start to feel like I wasn't actually drowning, something would break, or I would need new tires for my car, or something would happen, and I would have a huge expense that would push me right back down under the water. I had faith that God would provide every need, and He always did. but I certainly was not living the abundant life that he had promised. One day during this season, I was reading Haggai 1 in the Bible, and it's when the Israelites had returned to Jerusalem after being in captivity in Babylon, and God told them to rebuild the temple. But when they got back to Jerusalem, they got distracted and they started building their own homes and tending to their own needs. I want you to listen verses 2 through 9. Verse 2 says, "This is what the Lord Almighty says. These people say, the time has not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house." Then the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai. "Is it time for you yourselves to be living in your paneled houses while this house remains a ruin? Now, this is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. You have planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but you never have enough. You drink, but you never have your fill. You put on clothes, but you're not warm. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. Go up into the mountains and bring down timber and build my house so that I may take pleasure in it and be honored, says the Lord. You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home, I blew away. Why? Declares the Lord Almighty. Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy with your own house. Now, because they didn't obey, everything seemed to be going wrong for them. And it wasn't necessarily because God was angry with them, it was because he knew what was best for them and they weren't stepping into it. He knew that if they only would build the temple, they would have the peace that was promised to them. But once they listened and obeyed God's instruction, God says to them, "The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house," says the Lord. "And in this place I will grant peace," declares the Lord. When I read this, I knew that he had told me to do something that I hadn't done yet. And when I asked him what it was, the answer was very clear. Finish the book. It had taken me 3 years from the time that I had written the book to the time that it took me to finish it and publish the book. Between that time, I felt so stuck. I had no motivation and I wasn't taking any action. I felt unqualified and I felt like an imposter. I was afraid of failing and I was actually afraid of succeeding too. I never really understood what that meant until this season, but I had been safely hidden under God's wings for so many years, and writing a book about 21 days in prayer fasting was going to expose me and remove me from my hiding place. That was scary. The enemy didn't have to attack me, though, because my own thoughts were doing his job for him. But God, he promises peace. No more striving for nothing, no more feeling stuck. So I finished the book and peace came. I didn't have that anxiety of, I need to get this done, but I feel stuck anymore because I took action and I got it done. And it's published and it's available on Amazon. So, what about you? Have you taken the time to connect with God and follow through on his guidance? God's timing might not be your timing, but his timing is always right on time. Be faithful while you wait. Think about waiting as an action verb, like a waiter who serves. He doesn't just sit and wait for his customers to finish eating once they get their meal. He continues to serve them. He fills their water and he asks how their meal is. He keeps serving until his job is done. When you have done all things, that's when you stand. But you continue taking action as you stand. That is an action verb. And you want to remain faithful while you wait for God's timing because he is preparing you for what's next. You want to be patient because you don't want that door to open until you are fully prepared for it to open. I hear a specific phrase from almost all of my clients who feel stuck. It feels like every time I take two steps forward, I take one step back. Friend, when you have to take a step back or when you have to backtrack because you've been on the wrong path, consider it a blessing to be able to get a new perspective. Look up, reconnect with God, and just check to see where are you going and just get back on track so that you don't feel stuck. Now, let's go on to step two. Step two is make a plan. A vision for God won't get you where you're going. You have to actually take steps forward to get there. But first, you have to know where you are. A vision from God is like having a destination for your GPS. But in order to get directions to that destination, you have to put in the GPS where you're starting from. And then the GPS makes a plan on how it's going to get you from where you are to where you're going. The cool thing about GPSs and Jesus is that they're the ones who map out the perfect plan for us. We don't have to figure that part out. We just have to know where we're starting from and where we're going. That doesn't mean that we won't make wrong turns every once in a while. I mean, who knows what the actual distance is when the GPS says turn right in 600 feet? So many times I have navigated that wrong, but it always creates a new way for me to make a U turn or it creates a new way for me to get back on track. As you start to make a plan, determine what part of getting started is actually holding you back. Is it fear? Is it indecision? Is it procrastination? Usually it's some of all of the above. Next time you get stuck on starting something, ask yourself, do I worry about this? What might the fear be? What is the worst or best possible scenario for getting started? And write all of that down. Write a list of possible actions that you can take right now as well. If you have no fear at all, what would you do? And if you knew with 100% certainty that it would turn out all right in the end. Now, the last step is to take action. So, step three, take action. I remember when my oldest daughter was 9 months old because it was really young for her to start walking, but she wanted something on the other side of the room and she was standing and she didn't want to sit down or crawl. She wanted to walk and she started to cry, but she looked at me and as soon as we made eye contact, she got this fierce determination in her eyes. She's 22 years old and she still gets that determination look in her face, but she took a step and then she took another and she kept walking until she got across the room and she got what she wanted. She saw what she wanted, she took action, and she got it. She wasn't ready, she wasn't equipped, she was only 9 months old. She was scared to take that step. But once she looked at me, who was her safe person, and she knew that she was okay because I was near, she took that step and she went for it. And just like her, if we want to see change or we want to get from point A to point B, we can look to Jesus, our safe one. And then we can take action knowing that we are safe. And we want to remember that motivation and momentum come with action. You will never get motivated by just thinking about it. Just think about the last time that you decided that you were going to start an exercise regimen. How many times did you sit on the couch and think, I feel so unmotivated to do this. I don't want to do it. But once you got up off the couch and you started to put your shoes on, then you started to feel a little bit more motivated. Once you got out the door and your dog was on the leash, then it was like, okay, I can do this. And once you start walking, you're like, this is not so bad. Why did I put this off for so long? That's what it's like, is you just have to keep taking action, one step at a time. The first step was getting up off of the couch. The second step was putting on the shoes and getting the dog's leash. And once that dog knows that it's time for a WALK, we can't actually say the word because she'll want one. But once you get that leash out, she knows and she's not going to let you not go at that point. So then you're committed and then you can go. And that's when it starts to feel good. So, breakthrough or getting unstuck is on the other side of whatever it is that you're resisting the most. And it's on the other side of your comfort zone. I used to carry a sticky note in my purse that said, "The only way out is through." You want to trust yourself and you want to trust God and go for one of the actions on your list that you made in the plan step. And as soon as you get into motion, you'll notice that the feeling of being stuck subsides. The trick is to get a second action going right away after the first one, and then another one, and then another one. Just like my daughter, when she started walking, she had to take that first step, and that was the scary one. And then she took another one. And she was a little bit off balance, but then she took another one. And she kept going until she got to that toy that she wanted across the room. Remember that the first step is often the hardest. Once you get started, God will back you up and give you the power that you need to keep going, and you'll start to get things done. Once you get a few actions going, the momentum will help carry you forward. It's kind of like those water wheels that are really big and heavy and they need a lot of water to get going. They are not going to get momentum with just a couple of drips of water. But once the action of the water continues to overflow into them, then they start turning. And once they get momentum, it doesn't take any effort at all. The water just flows. It's a bit like a snowball effect. It becomes harder and harder to get stuck once you're out of the starting blocks. So, here are a couple of bonus tips to help you along the way. Identify your biggest fear about getting started. What is the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that could possibly happen? Except for the odd one out, you'll realize that the worst usually isn't that bad, and it's certainly not as bad as doing nothing. And usually, the fear that we have never actually comes true. If fear is truly tripping you up, though, do some warfare and bind the spirit of fear in the name of Jesus, and then pray and ask God to give you the courage that you need to take the first step and then the next step, and continue to pray until you have the momentum going on your own. Once you get fear out of the way, it will become so much easier to get things done. Don't leave it on the list of things to do later. Do it today. And then you want to reward yourself for getting started and along the way. Treat yourself, take a break, go outside in the fresh air. Don't wait until the end of the project or the end of the goal to celebrate. When you've been stuck for a while, it's essential to reward yourself for little progress because this is going to train your brain to want more of that feeling and make it easier for you to keep going. And then you want to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Let me say that again. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I know that you are afraid of the unknown and the uncertainty. I am too, but most people never get what they want because they quit when it gets tricky. By getting familiar with the annoying or complex emotions, give yourself a priceless gift. The more that you get acquainted with being uncomfortable, the more you have control over being uncomfortable instead of being uncomfortable, being in control of you. If it's still too hard for you to get started, I want you to just think really small increments. Make a plan for the next 15 minutes. Forget about the end goal and forget about all of the tasks that you have to accomplish and focus on the next 15 minutes. Focus on connecting with God, making a plan, and taking a step. Just 3 steps in the next 15 minutes. What is a small action that you can do? And then do it, and then do the next one within the next 15 minutes. And keep repeating this for the next few days or the few weeks until those 15 minutes feel really easy. Then add more time as you progress forward. There's a part in Disney's Frozen 2 movie when Anna is paralyzed by grief and fear, but she knows that she has to help her people and she has to keep moving forward, even though some horrible things had happened to her. But she sings this song, and I love the lyrics of the song. It says, just do the next right thing. Take a step, step again. It is all that I can do, the next right thing. I won't look too far ahead. It's too much for me to take, but break it down to this next breath, this next step. The next choice is the one that I can make. So just like Anna, do the next right thing, even if it feels really hard. And the last thing is that you can get an accountability partner, a mentor, or even a life coach. This is what I help people with, is helping them get unstuck. Find someone who will tell you to get your butt in gear, even when you don't want to get started. Share your goals with them, your dreams, your work schedules, and everything that you need to share with this person that is keeping you from moving forward, and ask them to keep you on track. And if it's a friend, you can offer to do the same thing for them as well, if it makes sense. You can get there on your own, but often knowing that you're accountable to somebody else will make it so much easier to get and stay unstuck. I hope that you have found these tips helpful. Just remember that being stuck is a feeling, it's not a fact. You have the power to move forward. I know it's hard, but I believe in you, and I know that you can do it. So, what small step can you take today to move forward? If you're feeling paralyzed by a decision that you need to make and just need some clarity, try this. Imagine your life 6 months from now. Which decision are you glad you made? Or which decision are you glad you didn't make? Friend, you already have everything that you need. Either you have the answers or you need to spend some time with God to find them. And then get up and go. That's it for today, friends. Real quick before you go, if this podcast has blessed you, the number one way that you can thank me is to leave a written review over on Apple Podcasts, or give me a 5-star review wherever you listen. Also, be sure to hit follow so that you never miss an episode. The second thing that you can do is share it with a friend. It not only blesses me, but you are creating a ripple effect by getting this message into the hands of others who might need to hear it. In case no one told you today, I want to remind you of this. You have come so far. Look at how much you have grown. Remember that there hasn't been one challenge that you haven't overcome. Know that you are strong, capable, gifted, and God has a beautiful purpose and plan for you here on earth. Remember that you are the daughter of the one true King. You are his masterpiece, and your story is a testimony to other women. Keep shining and be so very proud of the woman you are and the woman you are becoming. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, friend.